Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on back. In this one today, we're going to be discussing the evolution of the first COD Zombies map ever, Nacht and Untoten. To start off, we have to go back to the end of the campaign in World at War. We got the iconic intro with the zombie heading towards the player after a plane crash. The first time Nacht and Untoten debuted was also the first time that zombies debuted. This was the best map to introduce the game mode because it was incredibly simple. You had 3 doors and a couple of wall weapons, a box, and that was it. The atmosphere was very scary and gave the player a feeling of being alone. This map is always a great start for those who have never played zombies or for those who have never played a video game. The zombies move super slow, so you're not overwhelmed in those early rounds, and it also adds to the atmosphere of this map. Nowadays, I don't play Nacht that much, especially the World at War version, because there just isn't any content whatsoever to keep me playing past round 10. But for the time, with not many people knowing high round strategies, it was incredibly replayable. The average high round for zombies during this time was around the early 30s, which is nothing nowadays, but the fact that you couldn't blaze through the rounds really quickly on this map was good because it forced players to focus more on the surrounding atmosphere and environment, which I feel isn't appreciated in zombies anymore. Overall, World at War Nacht didn't offer much, but during the time, it was exactly what the community needed, and for that, it holds a huge amount of respect today. Moving into our next iteration of Nacht, we have the Black Ops 1 version. We didn't see this map return until the very end of Black Ops 1, when it was offered in the Moon DLC pack. This DLC was the best that Call of Duty had to offer during the time because not only did you get Moon, which is an incredible map, but you also got all the remastered versions of World at War, which of course included Nacht and Untoten. We saw a lot of new things introduced in this Black Ops 1 remastered version of Nacht, but the community appreciated Treyarch for keeping a lot of the content from World at War the same. The wall weapons were all carried over from World at War and were updated on the Black Ops 1 engine, which was really nice to see. The introduction of the Thunder Gun was also a great change since it gave a much better way to get to high rounds in comparison to the old strategy where you would run the flamethrower. Not all was good with this version of Nacht, however. There were some things that I didn't like. The map looked less saturated with the color blue and more dark and gritty, which I personally didn't like. Nacht and Untoten stood out a lot in World at War because of the blue coloring, and in Black Ops 1, it almost feels like a World War II zombies map because of how dark and gritty it looks. Another addition I didn't like too much was that they added in Meal Kick. Now, I don't hate the fact that they added a perk to the map. What I don't like is the fact that they didn't add any other perks. Why only Meal Kick? Why not add in Jug, Speed Cola, or Quick Revive? I understand that during the time they wanted to promote this new perk, but it's just disappointing since every other map in Black Ops 1 got Meal Kick and the OG4 except Nacht. Overall, I have a love-hate relationship with the Black Ops 1 version of Nacht and Untoten. On one hand, they did a really good job at keeping a lot of the content the same from World at War, while adding enough changes to keep up with the other Black Ops 1 maps. But some of the changes felt a bit unnecessary or weren't utilized properly, like the color palette change or the addition of Meal Kick. Regardless, the Black Ops 1 version of Nacht was a great homage to its predecessor. With the launch of Black Ops 2, we got Transit, and this is where Treyarch made a huge mistake by bringing back Nacht. Instead of bringing it back as a normal survival map, they placed it on the map Transit as its own separate area of that map. And this is hands down the worst version of Nacht and Untoten. They somehow added less content into this version of Nacht than the original World at War version. There are no wall buys or even a box location. The only reason you would ever head over there is to get one of the parts for the jet gun. This version of Nacht looks even worse than the original version of Nacht and Untoten as well, since it uses the foggy brownish gray color palette on Transit. Getting to this area in of itself is a hassle because you have to travel through the fog and the corn maze. To make things even worse, you have denizens jumping on your face while trying to navigate this area. The only positive thing that I can say about this version of Nacht is that you have access to the outside area of the map, which in previous versions of Nacht and Untoten wasn't available. But overall, including Nacht in transit does nothing but cause problems. It's a ton of unnecessary space that makes transit worse as a map and actually ruins the reputation of Nacht and Untoten. This version of Nacht completely misrepresented what the original version back in World at War was supposed to be, and only gave a bad reputation to the iconic map. Transit would have been better without this portion, and I don't think anyone would have been bothered by having a Black Ops game without Nacht and Untoten. After Black Ops 2's Transit, we wouldn't see another version of Nacht until DLC 5 Zombies Chronicles in Black Ops 3. This DLC pack was the most sold DLC of all time during the end of Black Ops 3, and thus it provided a new audience of players to experience what Nacht and Untoten was like. The only issue was that this version of Nacht would see dramatic changes that completely changed the way that people viewed this map. While most of these changes were controversial and hated during the time, I see them as a positive influence for this map overall now. The biggest change in this version of Nacht was the introduction of Gobblegums. This completely changed the gameplay dynamics of this map, since you could now obtain Pack-a-Punch weapons and receive all the perks on the map. This made high rounds super easy but also tediously long to achieve. Using wall power and bullet boost gave access to double Pack-a-Punch weapons, which would make so many more strategies for high rounds accessible for this map. We also saw the Thunder Gun make a return, which only further made the map more enjoyable and easy to get high rounds on. Mule Kick was also brought back from Black Ops 1, but I am more willing to accept its appearance on this map because the Wonder Fizz was also brought onto this map, which made it possible to obtain every single perk from Black Ops 3 that you could ever want. My favorite thing about this remastered version of the map is that they brought back the saturated blue color palette from the original World at War version. Out of all the remasters of Nacht and Untoten, this version feels the most like its original when it comes to the styling and color, which is really nice to see. All seemed good with this remastered version of Nacht, but there were a few things that bothered the community with this map. The first was that the original weapons on Nacht and Untoten were replaced by the Black Ops 3 weapons. Treyarch would add the Colt and some old weapons back into the game months later, but all the wall weapons are the standard guns from Black Ops 3. The second complaint was that the map gameplay-wise was nothing like the version in World at War. For the hardcore audience, they wanted to see the original bare-bones Nacht and Untoten from World at War, but this version had way too many elements from Black Ops 3. Look, I hate to be the guy to say this, but if you want to play the original Nacht and Untoten from World at War, you can go buy World at War for a few bucks right now and play the original experience. Hating on the Zombies Chronicles version for having too many Black Ops 3 features is like hating on the popular kid in school for being a star quarterback on the football team. It makes no sense because from my perspective at least, I see it as a good thing. If they brought back Nacht in the exact same way from World at War, or even the Black Ops 1 version, nobody would have cared. The fact that they made the map feel so different, yet look the exact same as the original, is the reason why I love it. This version of Nacht is personally my favorite because in terms of atmosphere and overall vibe, it does a good job at replicating the original, but it also feels new because of the mechanics in Black Ops 3. In my opinion, this is how a remastered map should be. Black Ops 4 was the next Treyarch game after Black Ops 3, and it was the only Treyarch game to not have Nacht and Untoten. We wouldn't see Nacht again until the launch of Black Ops Cold War. Similar to Black Ops 2, they didn't bring back Nacht and Untoten as a normal survival map. Instead, they brought back Nacht as a part of the base map for this game, the Maschine. Unlike Black Ops 2, Treyarch did a much better job with this approach of Nacht. They actually put things on this version of Nacht, like perks, weapons, and even some of the steps for the Wonder Weapon and Easter egg. They opened the top portion of this map, which not only made for a great camping spot for high rounds, but also provided the player with easy access to all the perks through the Wonder Fizz machine. All of these changes were great from the gameplay perspective. The only part I didn't like about this version of Nacht was the change in aesthetics. Similar to Transit, they completely changed the way Nacht looked to match the surrounding area on the Machine. While it looks much better than the greenish-brown foggy version of Transit, I still don't like it in comparison to the original. These spray paint and hanging Christmas lights are all cool and iconic for the Machine, but it makes Nacht Untoten completely unrecognizable. Overall, this version of Nacht was much better than the Black Ops 2 version, but still isn't personally one of my favorites. The content in terms of gameplay is great, but I don't feel like I'm playing Nacht Untoten whenever I'm on the D Machine version. However, this wasn't the only time that we saw Nacht Untoten for Black Ops Cold War. In the last map, Forsaken, there's a 3-minute side Easter egg you can do on this map that teleports you to Nacht Untoten. This version of Nacht has a huge lack of content in comparison to most other versions, since you can't access the top floor and there are no weapons or perks. All you have is a Colt, a knife, and the occasional reward box for the few rounds that you have to survive. It is a side Easter egg for another map, so I won't hate this version of Nacht as in comparison to the other version on Transit. I think it's really cool that they added this version of Nacht as a side Easter egg. It's very easy to access, and its sole purpose is to provide that atmosphere from the older games. Now, one critique that I will give this version of Nacht is the styling. The styling that they went for was from the Black Ops 1 version of Nacht Untoten, where the map is very dark and doesn't have much color. I would have preferred if they did the original World at War version when it comes to map styling, but other than that, I see this version of Nacht Untoten as a little gimmick for the map Forsaken that just gives the OG players something to smile about. In conclusion, Nacht Untoten is a very iconic map. It was the first map ever introduced in Zombies and has been in almost every single Treyarch Zombies game. The original is still one of the best versions to play in my opinion. Some versions are better, like the Black Ops 3 Zombies Chronicles iteration of Nacht, while others are worse, like the version on Transit. The inclusion of Nacht in so many Zombies games is supposed to serve as a reminder of the simpler times where Zombies was about hitting the box and shooting at the undead. This map will forever be remembered as the one that started it all. Anyways guys, this is going to wrap up the video for today. If you did enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, do all that. Leave your comments down below if you want to see me do any other type of content. Check down the description as well for more zombie related videos. And yeah, I got nothing much else to say, so peace.